Hello, third grade, and welcome to lesson 3-2. We're going to talk about applying properties, specifically the distributive property that we learned in our last lesson, and applying it when we're multiplying with 3s and 4s. So your 3 and 4, when you're using those as factors or as one of the numbers that you're multiplying by, we're going to have the distributive property help us to figure out how to find answers to those when we're not sure.
How can you break apart arrays to multiply with 3? Think about this question during the lesson. The park district has canoes stored in 3 rows. There are 6 canoes in each row. What is the total number of canoes stored?
Okay, so we have an array here, and our array shows 3 rows with 6 in each row. So that's 3 times 6 that we're going to do to help figure out our total number of canoes. Now, one way that we learned during our last lesson is to use the distributive property and to break them apart. So we're going to count some of the rows first, and then we'll count some of the rows afterwards, and we'll put together those two partial products or those two part answers to find the whole answer.
How does an array help you multiply? An array puts items into equal rows and columns so that it is easier to find the total number. What operation will you choose to find the total when you have an array?
Select your answer.
You can multiply to find the total for an array. Find 3 times 6. Use 1's facts and 2's facts to help you multiply with 3. Make an array for each multiplication sentence. Look at the way 3 times 6 was broken apart to help you multiply. Why is it okay to break apart the array? You can break apart the array because the number of items does not change. How is breaking apart the array helpful? You can use arrays for facts you already know to help find the total. 1 times 6 equals 6. 2 times 6 equals 12. 12 plus 6 equals 18.
Okay, so let's pause here for a second. Now, the first property we used here was a distributive property where we broke apart our array. But the second property you can see that we use here is the identity property or the 1 property. So if it's 1 times 6, we know that 1 times any number means that number stays the same. So 1 times 6 is equal to 6. For the top portion where we use 2 times a number, we're doubling. So we're using our doubling facts. So 2 groups of 6 is the same thing as saying 6 plus 6 more. So we're going to double that 6 to find the 12. Then we added those 2 partial products, the 12 plus the 6, to find our 18.
3 times 6 is 3 rows of 6. That is 2 6's plus 1 more 6. 2 6's are 12. 1 6 is 6. 12 plus 6 equals 18. 3 times 6 equals 18. There are 18 canoes. Now you know how to break apart an array to help you multiply.
Okay, for this question, it says the park district has canoes stored in 3 rows. So we know about that. Suppose there were 7 canoes in each row, in each of the 3 rows. How can 2 times 7 equals 14 help you find the total number of canoes? So if we know 2 times 7, that means we already have 2 of those 3 counted. All we need to do now is to find the other group of 3. So if we have 3 rows altogether, 2 times 7 equals 14. Means we only have to count one more group of 7. So 2 times 7 equals 14, plus 1 times 7 equals 7 can help us figure out that 14 plus 7 more is going to give us our product or our answer to 3 times 7. So knowing 2 times 7 means we already have a partial product to find our total number. Now, before we get into our guided practice questions, I do want to go over some notes and some examples with you guys. And then we'll get back into it. Now, when we're talking about applying properties, we can use a distributive property to help find the product of arrays when you need to multiply by 3 and 4. So when 3 and 4 are one of your factors that you're working with, you can use the distributive property to break apart those numbers. So if for my first example, I want to find the product of 3 times 5, maybe I don't know my 3 times tables, but I do know my 2s and I know my 1s. So I took my 3 times 5 and I made my cut right here. This is where I split them. So I did 2 times 5 plus 1 times 5. Now I know 2 times 5 is 10 and 1 times 5 is 5. Now I need to add those two partial products. Remember, that means part of your answer. We're going to add those two partial products to find the sum, which is 15. So I know that the product of 3 times 5 is equal to 10 plus 5 more, which is 15. So I use my distributive property to break apart my array of 3 times 5 into 2 times 5 plus 1 times 5. Now, if I'm working with the number 4, I can also split it into 2 equal groups. So our 2 multiplication facts are pretty easy for us to remember. So I can split this right in half. If I have 4 times 7 as my original array, I can split it into 2 times 7 plus another 2 times 7. So I'm going to take these two partial products. I'm going to add their products together to find my final answer. So if I know 2 times 7 is 14 and another 2 times 7 is 14, that means 4 times 7 is equal to 14 plus 14, which is going to give me 28. Now I don't have to split it here. I can split it into 1 times 7 plus 3 times 7, or I can split it down here. So it's 3 times 7 plus 1 times 7. You can do it multiple ways. Now, for our guided practice, our first question tells us that we have 4 times 7, just like we had above. What is another way that we can split 4 times 7 other than splitting it into 2 equal groups where it's 2 times 7 plus 2 times 7? Now, this is something we just talked about. I can split it right here if I want to. So 4 times 7 is going to equal 1 times 7 plus 1, 2, 3, 3 times 7. So I know 1 times 7 is 7, and 3 times 7 is 21. So 4 times 7 is going to equal 28. So over here, 4 times 7 is equal to 28. So I took that 4, because all of this together was 4, right? I split it into 1 and then 3 more. For number 2, it asked us to draw an array to show the garden that Selena planted. Now for Selena's garden, she planted 3 rows with 9 plants in each row. So we're going to make 3 rows. That means 3 lines, 3 groups with 9 in each group. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's our first row. We draw in our second row of 9 and our third row of 9. Now, I may not know the answer to this question. I may not know my 3 times table. So what I can do is I can divide this, or I can distribute this array into 2 groups. So maybe I want to split it over here. So I'll have 1 times 9 plus 2 times 9, right? We have our first group is a group of 1 right here, 1 group of 9, and this is 2 groups of 9. Now we know all together these were 3. So I split it into 1 and then 2 more. Now I know 1 times 9 is equal to 9, and 2 times 9 is equal to 18. So 3 times 9 is going to be equal to 9 plus 18, which is 27. So 9 times 3, no longer a question mark. We know that our product here is 27. Okay. Now for number 3 all the way to number 8, it says you can use counters if you need to, or you can remember these basic multiplication facts that we talked about in our previous lessons, in our previous chapter as well. So 3 times 10, remember anything times 10, you just put a 0 in the last place value. So 3 times 10 becomes 30. So we keep our 3, and we add a 0 after it. So here we want to figure out what is the product of 5 times 4. What is the answer when we get to 5 times 4? So I can skip count by 4, so I can skip count by 5. So remember, my multiplication properties that we covered in our previous chapter tell us that we can multiply in any order. So I can skip count by 5 4 times, 5, 10, 15, 20. So I know 5 times 4 is equal to 20. Here we want to figure out what is the product of 3 times 8. If I don't know what that is, I can split my 3 into 1 and 2. So I know 1 times 8 is 8, and 2 times 8 is 16. So 16 plus 8 is going to give me 24. 1 times 4, this is our identity property. Any number times 1 stays the same. So 1 times 4 stays 4. For number 7, we have 3 times 7. So we can split this into 1 times 7 plus 2 times 7, right? I can split apart my 3 into 1 plus 2. And I can do 1 times 7 plus 2 times 7. Now I know 1 times 7 is 7. 2 times 7 is 14. 7 plus 14 is equal to 21. So I know 3 times 7 is equal to 21. And here we have another multiplication fact with the number 10. So just like we did up here, any number multiplied by 10 moves up a place value. It gets a 0 in its final place value. So you keep the number and you add a 0 to the end of it. So this is 10 groups of 4, or you can count it as 4 groups of 10. Either way works. If you have any questions about this lesson, let me know, 3rd grade. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.